Hello everyone! Welcome to our animated philosophy series where we explore timeless concepts in a modern context. Today's lesson is on one of the cornerstone ideas in 20th century philosophy, the verification theory of meaning, which lies at the heart of the logical positivist movement. By the end of this lesson, you'll understand why the logical positivists believe that a statement is meaningful only if it can be empirically verified or is a tautology, and how this approach fundamentally shaped the way we think about scientific hypotheses, religious and metaphysical claims, and even everyday language. So, what is this theory? Imagine you're having a conversation with a friend, and they make a statement like the universe is ultimately made of love. That's quite poetic, right? But how would you verify this? Can you test it? Is there any way to observe love as the building block of the universe in a laboratory? According to logical positivism, if you can't verify this statement through observation or empirical data, or it doesn't belong to formal logic or mathematics, where you deal with necessary truths like 2, 2, 4, then the statement simply has no meaning. This leads us to the core of the verification theory of meaning. A statement is meaningful only if it is empirically verifiable, that is, you can test it using observations or experiments, or it is a tautology, which means this is true by definition, like all bachelors are unmarried. Now, the logical positivists were very careful about what kind of verification was acceptable. Initially, they talked about strong verification, which means a statement could be said to be meaningful if it could be definitively proven to be true or false based on empirical evidence. However, they quickly realized that this was too strict. If we only accepted strong verification, we'd have to reject many scientific statements as meaningless too. After all, in science, we often talk about things we can't immediately prove, like the existence of subatomic particles before they were directly observed, or even statements about events in the distant past. So they introduced the idea of weak verification. Under this weaker criterion, a statement is meaningful as long as we can conceive of some way to test it, even if we can't completely verify it right now. For example, the statement "there are mountains on the far side of the moon" was meaningful even before anyone had traveled there, because we could imagine ways we might eventually verify it, like sending astronauts or taking photographs from a spacecraft. This distinction between strong and weak verification allows for the ongoing nature of scientific discovery, where some statements aren't yet provable but remain meaningful as long as there's a possible path to empirical evidence. Let's bring this into the real world. Think of a scientific hypothesis, like the theory of evolution. It's based on observations of fossil records, genetic similarities, and the distribution of species. While we may not have strong verification of evolution in the sense that we can't observe millions of years of gradual changes in real time, the theory is considered meaningful because it's grounded in empirical evidence that can be tested and refined as more data becomes available. Now, contrast this with a metaphysical claim, something like God exists outside of space and time. From the perspective of logical positivists, this kind of statement is neither empirically testable nor tautological. How would you observe or measure something that, by definition, exists outside any possible experience? This is where logical positivism draws a hard line. Such statements, they argued, are meaningless because there's no conceivable way to verify them. One of the most influential proponents of the verification theory of meaning was Alfred Jules Ayer, a British philosopher who brought logical positivism into the mainstream, particularly through his famous work, Language, Truth, and Logic. Ayer argued that much of traditional philosophy, especially metaphysics, was riddled with statements that were neither empirical nor logical. For instance, he dismissed statements like there is an absolute moral order in the universe as not just false, but literally meaningless because they couldn't be subjected to empirical verification or logical analysis. Ayer also used the empirical test to critique statements about ethics, religion, and metaphysics. He said that if a statement couldn't, in principle, be tested through sensory experience, it was nothing more than an emotional or expressive utterance, like cheering for your favorite team, not a genuine proposition about reality. Imagine a group of logical positivists sitting around a table in a scientific lab. One of them suggests a theory. There are invisible gremlins controlling the machinery at first. It sounds like a hypothesis. But then another positivist asks, how would we test this? Can we detect these gremlins in any way? Can we build an experiment to measure their presence or absence when the original theorist responds, no, they're invisible and undetectable in principle? The group laughs, because according to the verification theory, this statement isn't scientific at all. It's meaningless. If you can't verify it, even in theory, then it's not a claim about reality. It's just a fantasy or a metaphor, no more valid than saying, the universe is made of invisible magic. This emphasis on testability is why logical positivists are often seen as champions of the scientific method. They weren't just interested in science itself, but in the logic behind how science works. They wanted to ensure that the statements we make about the world can be either verified or falsified, otherwise, we're just playing with words. To wrap things up, the verification theory of meaning fundamentally reshaped how we think about what is meaningful and what is mere speculation. By insisting that a statement must either be empirically verifiable or tautologically true, logical positivists hope to purify language and philosophy from what they saw as the muddled, untestable claims of metaphysics and religious doctrines. So next time you encounter a claim, whether it's in everyday conversation or a complex philosophical debate, ask yourself, can this be verified? If not, it might not be as meaningful as it seems. Thank you for learning with us. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more insights into similar echoes.